They thought I was too old to notice, too slow to think, too weak to fight back. But I've buried liars before, and I know the smell of betrayal long before the glass reaches my lips. The name's Tom Callahan, 78, retired machinist, born and raised in Ashford, Illinois. Folks in town call it quiet country. But you wouldn't believe the noise I've lived through, the whine of drills, the roar of furnaces, the crash of steel. Noise like that teaches you to pay attention to the smallest details, because when the machines stop, it usually means someone's hand is caught where it shouldn't be. So when I heard the faintest clink one evening, a spoon tapping too gently against my coffee mug, I knew it wasn't an accident. My granddaughter Emily smiled as she stirred. Too sweet, too careful. Her brother Jason sat across from me pretending to scroll his phone, but I saw the twitch in his jaw. I may be old, but I don't miss a twitch. "Grandpa," Emily chirped, her voice high, bright, sugar-laced, "drink up before it gets cold." Her eyes didn't match her tone. They were fixed on the cup, not on me, waiting. I lifted the mug slowly, my hand steady, even though my bones ached. Coffee's supposed to smell like warmth. Roasted beans, maybe a hint of cinnamon if you're lucky. This smelled wrong. Metallic. Bitter. I smiled back, my lips curling just enough. "You know," I said, "coffee tastes better from my old thermos. Keeps the heat in." Emily froze, just for a second. Jason cleared his throat. "We thought the mugs looked nicer." "Nicer," I repeated, setting the cup down without taking a sip. My fingers brushed the rim. Sticky. They thought I was blind. They thought I didn't hear the whispers in the hallway, the arguments about inheritance, about the house, about how long I had left. I heard every word. Old age doesn't make you deaf. It makes you invisible. That's the mistake they made. I excused myself, shuffled down the hall with the mug in hand, and closed the door behind me. They thought I was going to the bathroom. In truth, I went straight to the drawer in my study, the one with the small glass vials, leftovers from my days repairing precision tools. Inside, I poured half the coffee into a sample jar and sealed it tight. Habit, documentation, evidence. I've always believed if you want the truth to stand, you'd better have proof to nail it down. Later that night, after they left, I sat at my desk. The mug still smelled sharp, like almonds gone sour. Rat poison, maybe. Something easy to buy if you knew which store kept lax records. My hand shook, but not from fear, from rage. The kind of rage that sits low and cold, waiting for its turn. I thought back to the years I'd given those kids. Jason's first fishing trip, Emily's piano recitals, the way I slipped bills into their palms when their parents weren't looking, every birthday cake, every scraped knee I patched, every time I drove across town just to pick them up from practice. And now this. The next morning, I drove to Miller's Pharmacy, small brick building on Main Street, paint peeling, but still standing like me. Mr. Miller wasn't there anymore, God rest him, but his son, Paul, remembered me. He tested the coffee sample and back. Took him an hour. When he returned, his face was pale. "Tom," he whispered, "this isn't coffee. It's laced. Strong dose." I nodded once, pocketed the jar, and thanked him. That was all I needed. I didn't tell him who poured it. That was my secret to keep. By the time I got home, the grandchildren were back, acting innocent, asking if I wanted dinner. My daughter, Linda, their mother, had gone out for errands. Convenient. They were alone with me again. Jason leaned in with a grin, too wide. "Grandpa, you should eat more. Keep your strength. Strength. That word again, as if weakness was my natural state. I sat down at the table. Emily placed a bowl in front of me. Soup, this time. Clear broth. Floating herbs. She stood behind me, watching too close. Jason fiddled with his phone again, but I noticed his thumb hovering like he was ready to record. Evidence of what? My collapse. I lifted the spoon, let the broth touch my lips, then set it down. Need salt? I said flatly. Emily bit her lip. Jason's phone lowered an inch. I smiled inside. They were amateurs. You don't poison a machinist who's handled oil, solvents, and fumes his whole life. My senses were trained to pick up what doesn't belong. That night, when they left again, I poured the soup into the sink and watched the liquid swirl down the drain. My reflection in the steel faucet looked older, worn, but not beaten. Not yet. Upstairs, in the cedar chest, I pulled out my old leather notebook, the one where I used to log machine calibrations and repair notes. Now, it would serve a different purpose. I wrote it all down, the date, the coffee, the soup, their words, their glances. And at the bottom of the page, in shaky but deliberate handwriting, I wrote, "They think I'm dying. They're wrong." The plan began to form right there, between ink stains and silence. They wanted me gone. Fine. I'd let them think I was slipping. I'd let them set the stage, gather their poison, prepare their lies. And when the curtain rose, they'd find themselves standing in the spotlight with nowhere to run. The first move was mine. I called my lawyer the next morning, told him I wanted to update my will, but not the way anyone expected. He agreed to meet me discreetly. "Are you sure, Tom?" he asked over the phone. "Dead sure," I replied, my voice calm. "And soon enough, they will be too." When I hung up, I heard Jason's car pulling up outside. Emily's laugh trailed behind. I tucked the notebook into my pocket, smoothed my hair, and shuffled to the door with the slow, heavy steps of an old man ready to fall. Because sometimes the sharpest weapon is letting your enemy believe you're already weak. And they had no idea how sharp I still was. They came back the next afternoon with smiles too sweet to trust. Emily carried a grocery bag. Jason had a six-pack of soda and a face like a salesman, bright but hiding rot. "Grandpa," Emily said, "we thought we'd cook dinner for you." "You shouldn't have to lift a finger." She walked straight to my kitchen like it belonged to her. Jason followed, tossing his keys on the counter. I shuffled in behind them, leaning heavier on the table than I needed to. I let my shoulders slump, my breaths shallow, my steps slow. Performance is easier when your bones already ache. "Don't go to the trouble," I muttered. Jason grinned. "It's no trouble at all. Family takes care of family." Family. That word tasted like rust. I lowered myself into my chair. From here, I had a clear view. Emily chopping vegetables too fine, too cautious. Jason unscrewing one of the soda caps, pouring it into a glass for me without asking. I watched his hand tremble. Barely, but enough. I didn't stop them, let the actors play their parts. By the time dinner was ready, the table looked almost festive. Roast chicken, potatoes, even a small cake. Overdone, unnatural. They were setting a stage, not serving a meal. Emily placed a plate before me, leaned close. "Eat, Grandpa. You need your strength." The second time she used that word in 2 days, strength, as if rehearsed. I cut a piece of chicken, brought it to my mouth, and chewed slow. Too salty, bitter at the edges. I forced myself to swallow, 1 bite only, enough for the illusion. I dabbed my lips with a napkin, then set the fork down. Delicious, I said softly. Jason's eyes flicked toward Emily. She nodded, satisfied. They thought the game was theirs. That night, after they left, I wrapped the leftovers tight and slipped them into a bag. Drove across town to the police station. Didn't go inside. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the alley behind and tucked the bag into the hands of a man I'd known 50 years. Frank Delaney, retired cop, old friend. "Run it quiet," I whispered. He peered inside. His jaw tightened. "Tom, you sure about this?" "Dead sure," I said again. He nodded. "Give me a few days." When I returned home, the house felt colder, not from the air, but from what lingered. Their laughter, their hands on my plates, their voices calling me weak while pretending to care. I climbed the stairs slow, each step a drumbeat. In my room, I opened the leather notebook and wrote. Chicken, potatoes, cake, witness. Frank, the trap, was closing one hinge at a time. 2 days later, Emily came by alone, brought soup in a plastic container, sat across from me, chin in her hands like a little girl, but her eyes never left the spoon as I stirred. "You look tired lately," she said gently. "Maybe you should see a doctor." "Yeah," I forced a cough, rough and weak. "Doctor can't fix old age." She reached over, patted my hand. "No, but they can help. If something happens, we'd know how to handle it. Jason and I, we'd take care of everything." There it was. The mask slipped. Not concern. Preparation. I sipped the soup, lips barely touching the liquid, then set it down. My stomach churned anyway, not from poison, but from fury. "Thank you, dear," I whispered, my voice fragile. "You and Jason are all I've got." Her smile widened. "Victory," she thought. That night, Frank called. His voice was low, serious. "Tom, we tested your samples. Rat poison, yes, but not just that. Sleeping pills, too, strong ones. Could knock you out for hours." "Enough to make me look sick," I said. "Or worse," Frank added. "This isn't a joke. They could have killed you." "I know," I whispered. "That's why I'm not stopping." Because now I wasn't just setting a trap, I was going to make them walk into it themselves. The next Sunday, the family gathered for lunch. Linda, my daughter, bustled around the kitchen. Jason and Emily flanked her like angels, offering help, washing dishes, carrying trays. Too eager, too clean. I sat at the head of the table, hunched, pale, coughing when I needed to. My fork barely touched the food. I watched Jason slip something into my water glass when he thought no one was looking. I let him, because taped beneath the table, hidden from sight, was a small recorder Frank had given me. Every whisper, every clink, every slip of the tongue, it was all there. I lifted the glass, sipped, swallowed once, then leaned back, my breath shaky. "Grandpa," Emily asked sweetly. I let my eyes half close, my body sink, let them think I was fading. Jason leaned close, his whisper barely audible. "It's working." Click, the recorder caught it all. My heart pounded steady, stronger than they knew. They thought the poison was my weakness. They had no idea it was about to become their confession. And the table they thought would be my grave was already their witness stand. The Sunday lunch ended in quiet triumph. For them. For me, it was the first real proof. Jason thought he whispered soft. Emily thought her smile hid the truth. They didn't realize the little black recorder under the table was hungrier than both of them. When the family left, I sat in my chair, staring at the half-empty glass. My daughter Linda kissed my cheek on the way out, none the wiser. She had no idea her children were gambling with my life like cards on a table. I stayed still until their car pulled out of the driveway. Then I reached under the table, peeled the tape loose, and held the recorder in my hand. The weight of it was small, but what it carried, heavy as a tombstone. I pressed play. Click, forks clatter, voices low. Jason's voice. "It's working." Emily's reply, sharp and quick. "Don't say that here." Another pause, then her laugh, too thin. "He won't last long." I stopped the tape. That was enough. For now. I slid the recorder into the pocket of my jacket. Cold metal against my chest. Felt like armor. The next morning, Jason showed up early. Too early. I was on the porch watering the roses when his car crept up the driveway. He hopped out, all cheer and fake sunshine. "Morning, Grandpa." "Thought I'd check on you." I leaned on the watering can, let my shoulders sag. "Didn't sleep much," I muttered. His grin widened. "Maybe you should rest more. You look frail." Frail, another word rehearsed. He followed me inside, eyes darting around the living room. His gaze lingered on the framed photos, me and his grandmother on our wedding day, me holding him as a baby. I saw no recognition in his eyes, just calculation. "You ever think about, making things easier?" he asked casually, running a hand over the back of the couch. "Easier how?" I asked, lowering myself into the recliner. "Well, like handling your affairs, making sure someone responsible looks after stuff, so you don't have to worry." Someone responsible, meaning him. I coughed weakly, pulling a blanket over my knees. "That's thoughtful, Jason." He smiled, leaned down, and patted my shoulder. "Too hard, too quick. We only want what's best for you." After he left, I stared at the door for a long time. The way he looked at me wasn't family. It was the way a crow eyes roadkill. That night, I phoned Frank again. "Got them on tape," I said. "Bring it over," he told me. "We'll keep it locked until you're ready." I hesitated. "Not yet. I want them deeper in. I want no escape when this blows open." Frank was silent for a beat. Then, "Careful, Tom. They're not playing games anymore." "I know," I said, my voice flat. "Neither am I." 2 days later, Emily came alone. She carried a pie all wrapped neat in foil. Blueberry, my favorite. She set it on the table, eyes shining too bright. "You should eat more sweets," she said. "Sugar gives you energy." I nodded, cutting a slice. The filling oozed dark, sweet, tempting. I took one bite, just one, swallowed slow. Her eyes followed every movement. "Tastes like old times," I said softly. Her shoulders relaxed. She smiled, too satisfied. She thought she had me. When she left, I wrapped the rest of the pie and slid it into a separate bag. Drove it to Frank. He met me in the alley behind the station again. He looked at the pie, then at me. "They're persistent," he muttered. "Persistent," I echoed, "or desperate." That night, the house felt like a stage waiting for the curtain to rise. Every creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the windows sounded like an audience holding its breath. I sat at the desk, leather notebook open, pen scratching across the page. Day 5. Jason pushing paperwork, Emily pushing pie. Both impatient, both careless. Recorder full, samples gathered, plan nearly ready. I underlined, nearly, because it wasn't enough to prove they tried to poison me. No, I needed to turn their greed into chains. They wanted me gone, wanted my estate, my name, my house. I would hand it all to them, on paper, on tape, in a setup so clean they'd think it was their own idea. And when the police came, the only fingerprints on the poison would be theirs. I closed the notebook, my hand steady. My bones ached, but my pulse thudded strong. They thought I was fading, but I was just waiting, the kind of waiting that sharpens the knife. By Thursday, the mask of family started to crack. Emily's voice got sharper. Jason's patience got thinner. They weren't asking about my health anymore. They were asking about the will. We sat in the living room, me in my recliner, them on the sofa like vultures perched on a fence. The TV hummed low, no one watching. Jason leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Grandpa," he began, his tone forced casual, "have you ever thought about, updating your documents? Just to make sure everything's in order." Emily jumped in too quick, like she'd rehearsed it. "Yeah, so nobody has to worry later. It'd be cleaner." Cleaner. That word hung in the air like smoke. I coughed, let my shoulders sag. "I've thought about it." Jason's eyes lit up, and I smiled faintly. "I'll need witnesses, trusted ones." He grinned, glancing at Emily. "Well, we're here." I looked down at my hands, trembling just enough to look real. Maybe soon. They relaxed, satisfied for now. But satisfaction makes people sloppy. That night, when the house was quiet again, I pulled the recorder from its hiding place and replayed their words. "Cleaner. We're here." Every phrase was another nail. Still, I knew whispers on tape and tainted food weren't enough. Courts like paperwork, police like signatures. If I wanted them trapped, I needed to lead them into writing their own guilt. The next day, I made the call. "Mr. Davies, my lawyer." "I want to update my will," I told him. He sighed. "We just spoke about this, Tom. Are you sure you want to keep changing things?" "I'm sure, but I want you to bring the papers here tomorrow, noon, and I want my grandchildren in the room." A pause. "That's unusual." "I'm old," I said dryly. "I get to be unusual." He agreed. When Jason and Emily arrived that afternoon, I told them casually, "The lawyer's coming tomorrow. We'll settle everything." Jason blinked. Emily's lips parted in surprise. Then both tried to cover it with smiles. "That's great," Jason said too quickly. "Finally," Emily whispered under her breath. I heard it, pretended not to. That evening, I prepared the house like a stage, recorder batteries replaced. Hidden camera Frank had given me tucked into the bookshelf, lens pointed at the table, my leather notebook open with an innocent grocery list scrawled across the top. If they wanted to rush me into my grave, I'd rush them into a courtroom first. The next day, Mr. Davies arrived right on time. Gray suit, neat tie, leather briefcase polished like always. Jason and Emily sat upright, pretending to be supportive. We gathered at the dining table. Mr. Davies spread out the papers. "Standard will adjustment," he explained. "Primary assets, estate, insurance. Mr. Callahan, are you certain about the beneficiaries?" I let my voice crack. "Yes, my grandchildren. They'll take care of me." Jason's smile twitched. Emily pressed her hand against mine, squeezing just a little too hard. I signed my name slowly, pen scraping across the page. My hand shook, not from weakness, but to sell the part. Then I slid the pen across the table. "Witness signatures here," Mr. Davies said, pointing. Jason grabbed the pen first, eager, signed, bold. Emily followed. Their names bled onto the paper beside mine, binding themselves to the very thing that would undo them. Mr. Davies gathered the documents. "All in order. I'll file these Monday." They left soon after, practically glowing, whispering in the hallway, thinking I couldn't hear. Jason's hissed voice. "It's done. Once he's gone. Emily, we won't have to wait long." Click! Recorder caught it all. When the door shut, I finally let my back straighten. No more coughing, no more trembling. I walked to the shelf, pulled the camera down, checked the feed. Clear video, clear audio, every smirk, every greedy word, every careless slip. They thought they'd won. But what they really did was sign their own confession. Still, I knew greedier hands get restless. They wouldn't wait. They'd strike sooner, faster, desperate to see results. And when they did, when they finally tipped the last drop of poison into my glass, I'd be ready. Because the trap wasn't closing tomorrow. It was closing now. The waiting didn't last long. Greed is impatient. It gnaws and claws until it breaks loose. Saturday night, Jason showed up alone. No excuses, no warnings. Just barged in with a plastic grocery bag and a grin stretched too tight. "Thought you'd like a treat, Grandpa," he said, pulling out a bottle of bourbon. "Your favorite." I hadn't touched bourbon since my wife died. He knew that, but he also knew the bottle would make a convincing story for paramedics. Old man drinks too much, heart gives out. I smiled weakly. "That's kind of you." He poured 2 glasses, pushed one toward me. I lifted it, let the liquid touch my lips, but didn't swallow. My throat burned anyway, rage more than liquor. Jason leaned back, smug. "To family," he said. "To family," I echoed, and set the glass down. Later, after he left, I carried the bottle into the garage, poured some into a jar, and sealed it. The bourbon smelled faintly of almonds. Again, same poison, new package. When I returned inside, the phone rang, Emily this time. Her voice shook with fake concern. "Grandpa, Jason told me you've been drinking again. Are you okay?" I almost laughed. She was laying groundwork already, planting rumors before the body was even cold. "I'm fine," I rasped, "just tired." "Maybe you should see a doctor soon," she pressed, "before something happens." Her slip was quiet, but it landed sharp. I hung up. By midnight, I had the bourbon jar labeled, dated, tucked into the leather notebook. Evidence stacked neat as bricks, enough to crush them. But paper and recordings weren't the climax I wanted. No, I wanted them caught in the act, red-handed, no room for excuses. So I called Frank. "It's time," I told him. "You mean?" "Yes, tomorrow. You'll get your proof." He hesitated. "Tom, you sure you're safe doing this?" I looked out the window. The night was silent, the roses in the yard swaying in the dark. Safe. Number. But justice never is. Sunday afternoon, they both came together. Emily carried a casserole dish, Jason a bag of groceries. Their smiles were brighter than ever, their voices syrupy sweet. "Grandpa," Emily cooed, "we thought we'd stay the evening. Keep you company." Jason set the bag on the counter. "Yeah, maybe watch a movie. Make sure you're comfortable." Comfortable. As if I was already laid out in a coffin. I shuffled to the recliner, coughing for effect. Blanket pulled to my chin. My body slouched, eyes half closed. I looked every bit the frail old man they thought I was. Jason brought me a glass of water. Emily hovered, her hand shaking just enough to spill a drop. "Drink, Grandpa," she urged. I raised the glass, let it hover at my lips. My pulse pounded, steady as a drum. Then I lowered it, slowly. "Wait," I murmured, voice weak. "Why don't you two share with me? 1 sip each, for family." They froze. Jason forced a laugh. "We're not thirsty." Emily's smile cracked. You need it more than we do. I nodded, setting the glass on the table. You're right. I'll drink in a minute. Just need a rest. I closed my eyes, feigned drowsiness. My ears caught every sound, the whisper between them, the nervous shuffle of feet. He's fading, Jason muttered. Good, Emily whispered back. Click. The recorder under the blanket caught it all, but so did something else. Outside, parked down the street, Frank sat in his old Chevy with a small camera trained on the house. He was waiting for my signal. I opened my eyes just a slit and let out a long groan. My head tilted, body slack, pretending to collapse. Emily gasped softly. Jason whispered, urgent now. It's happening. Don't panic. And that was the moment I'd been waiting for, because greed had finally pushed them into the open. I let my head loll, my breath shallow. The living room went silent, except for the clock ticking above the mantel. Emily crouched beside me, fingers pressed to my wrist. Her voice shook, but not with worry, with thrill. He's cold, she whispered. Jason hovered behind her. Is he? Did it work? I forced my chest still, let them believe it. Jason pulled out his phone, not to call an ambulance. No. He opened the camera. He angled it at me, whispering, proof. For the lawyer. Proof of what? That their plan succeeded. They didn't realize they were documenting a crime scene. I held still while Emily giggled nervously. Finally, she said, we'll be set. Click. Recorder caught it. Camera on the bookshelf caught it. And Frank, outside, caught the two of them standing over me like hunters admiring a kill. Then I let my hand twitch. A small, sudden movement. Emily gasped. Jason cursed. My eyes fluttered open, slow, heavy, deliberate. I coughed deep and raw. Not yet, I rasped. Their faces drained of color. Jason stammered, "Yeah, you need water." Emily grabbed the glass from the table, pushing it toward me. I raised my hand weakly. "No, I'll wait." Silence thick as tar filled the room, the kind of silence that knows it's guilty. They didn't stay long after that. Excuses came quick. Jason had errands. Emily had homework. They slipped out the door like thieves in daylight. As soon as their car pulled away, I sat up straight, threw off the blanket. My heart hammered, but my hands were steady. I walked to the window. Frank stepped out of his car, met my eyes, and gave a single nod. The net was ready. Next morning, the sheriff's deputy showed up. Frank had shared the footage, the recordings, the lab tests. They had enough to open a case quietly. "We'll need more," the deputy told me. "Something undeniable." "You'll have it," I said. That afternoon, Emily came back, alone this time. She carried cookies, warm from the oven. Her smile shook. She knew something was off after last night. "You scared us," she said. "You shouldn't play like that." "Play?" I asked softly. Her eyes flicked down. "You looked gone." "Not yet," I whispered, and pushed the cookie plate back toward her. "Why don't you try one first?" She froze, then forced a laugh. "I'm on a diet." I leaned closer, let my voice cut sharp. "You first!" Her mask cracked. For the first time, she looked small, cornered. "Fine," she muttered, shoving the plate away. I smiled. "Didn't think so." That night, Jason called. His tone wasn't sweet anymore. It was sharp, demanding. "Grandpa, you've got to trust us. We're just trying to help you. If you don't sign those papers, everything's going to be a mess when you're gone." "When I'm gone," I repeated. "That's all you think about, isn't it?" He went silent. Then, "You don't understand what we've sacrificed for you." I laughed cold. "Sacrifice? You mean patience?" I hung up before he could answer. The next day, Frank delivered copies of the reports. Lab results proving poison in the bourbon and pie, transcripts from my recorder, still shots from the hidden camera. He laid them on my kitchen table one by one. Tom, they're already guilty. You don't need to risk yourself anymore. I shook my head. Not enough. They'll cry mistake, say I imagined it, say I'm senile. I want them caught with the glass in their hands. Frank frowned. And how do you plan to do that? I looked at the roses outside, wilting in the cold. By giving them exactly what they want. A final drink? Frank's eyes narrowed. You're playing a dangerous game. Maybe, I said, my voice steel, but it's the only one they understand. That evening, I called Jason and Emily myself. Told them I wasn't feeling well. Told them I wanted to go over my will one more time before the end. My voice cracked, tired, perfect. They arrived within the hour, eager, hungry, and this time I poured the drinks. I set the 2 glasses down carefully, one before Jason, one before Emily. The bourbon glowed amber in the lamplight, steady as fire in a furnace. They eyed the glasses, then me. Jason licked his lips. Emily glanced at her brother, then forced a smile. You shouldn't, Jason said. Not with your health. My health, I rasped, isn't your concern anymore. Tonight we drink to family. I lifted my own glass, water only, though they didn't know. My hand trembled just enough to sell the act. Jason picked it up, sniffed. His eyes flicked to Emily. She gave the smallest nod. And that's when I leaned back, calm, and said, Drink first. Their smiles froze. Jason chuckled nervously. Come on, Grandpa. It's your toast. Then honor me, I said flat, cold. Drink. The silence was sharp enough to cut. Emily's hand shook, the glass clinking against the table. Finally, Jason forced a swallow, just a sip. Emily followed, her throat bobbing fast. Good, I said. Now we're even. They didn't know what I'd done. The bourbon wasn't poisoned, at least not by me. What they'd brought earlier in the week had been swapped bottle for bottle while they weren't looking. The one on the table tonight was theirs. Their fingerprints, their mix, their crime. Jason's face paled first. Emily coughed, wiping her lips. What did you... Jason stammered. I leaned forward, my voice steady. I didn't add a thing. You did. Days ago. Emily's eyes widened. No, that's not... Click. The hidden recorder on the mantel hummed to life, their voices already sealed, and then, flashing blue through the curtains, the crunch of tires on gravel. Jason bolted to his feet. What the hell? The front door opened. Sheriff Miller stepped in, flanked by 2 deputies. Frank followed, camera in hand. Jason's glass slipped, shattering on the floor. Emily froze like a deer in headlights. Evening, the sheriff said calmly. We've had complaints. Thought we'd check on Mr. Callahan. I stood slowly, taller than I'd felt in weeks. Sheriff, these are my grandchildren. They've been concerned about my health. Jason stammered. This is a mistake? Frank lifted the camera. Not according to the footage. The sheriff nodded. We've also got lab tests on that bourbon. Rat poison. Same brand bought with your car, Jason. Same store clerk remembers you. And we've got recordings. Want to hear yourself saying it's working? Jason's face drained. Emily shook her head violently. We were just joking. It wasn't... Save it, the sheriff cut in. You're both coming with us. The deputies stepped forward. Jason fought. Emily pleaded. But the cuffs clicked anyway. Their voices cracked, no longer sweet, no longer smug. Just raw panic. As they were led out, Jason turned on me, his voice breaking. "You set us up." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, son. You set yourselves up. I just hit record." Emily sobbed as the door shut behind her. The night swallowed their cries, leaving the house still. Frank set the camera on the table, his voice low. "You've got them, Tom." No way out. I sank into the recliner, the weight of weeks pressing down. My hands shook now, not from acting, from release, from fury finally cooling. Outside, the patrol car pulled away, taillights fading into the dark. The house was quiet again, too quiet, because revenge never brings joy, only silence. But silence, after what they tried to do, was good enough. The morning after their arrest, the house felt different. Still old, still creaking, but lighter, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. For weeks, the air had smelled of fear, metallic, bitter. Now it smelled like coffee again. Real coffee. I sat at the table with my leather notebook open. The pages were filled. Dates, samples, whispers, slips of the tongue, evidence, history. My handwriting looked shaky in places, but every word carried the same weight. Truth. Frank stopped by just after sunrise. He brought pastries from the diner, the kind we used to eat when we both worked shifts at the factory. He set the box down without ceremony. "They confessed in the car," he said. "Couldn't keep their mouths shut." Jason blamed Emily. Emily blamed him. Sheriff says it's airtight. I nodded, broke us pastry in half, let the crumbs scatter. "Good. You'll testify." I sipped my coffee. "If I have to." But the tapes, the lab results, their own words, they speak louder than I ever could. Frank leaned back, studied me. "You don't look relieved." "Relief is for people who were surprised," I said. I wasn't. He didn't argue. He knew better. By afternoon, Linda called, my daughter, their mother. Her voice trembled like glass. "Dad, I don't understand." "They're saying, Jason, Emily, they're saying you tricked them." "I didn't have to trick them," I said. "I just stopped pretending not to notice." Silence on the line. Then, soft as a prayer, "How could they?" I thought of her as a little girl, knees scraped, eyes bright. I thought of the way she trusted me to carry her when she was small, and now her children had tried to bury me while I was still breathing. "They forgot who raised them," I said coldly, "and they forgot who I am." I hung up before her sobs could break me. The trial was short. Evidence stacked high, lies crumbled fast. The jury didn't take long. Guilty. Both counts. Attempted poisoning, conspiracy, elder abuse, words sharp as nails hammered into the record. I didn't smile when the verdict came, didn't flinch when the sentence was read. 20 years each, maybe less with good behavior, but time was their prison now, not mine. When they were led away in shackles, Jason looked at me, eyes wide with betrayal, as if I was the traitor. Emily mouthed the word, "Please." I stared back, steady as steel, no mercy. After court, I walked out into the sunlight. It was warmer than I remembered. The sky above Ashford was wide, clean, not a cloud in sight. I breathed deep, filling my lungs with air they hadn't poisoned. That evening, I returned to the house, sat in the recliner, where I had pretended to be weak. The roses outside bent in the wind, petals scattering across the yard. For a moment, I thought of them as children again, small hands tugging at my sleeve, begging for stories. For a moment, grief stirred, but grief passes. Betrayal doesn't. I picked up my pen one last time, wrote in the notebook, "It's over." They buried themselves. Then I closed it, slid it back into the cedar chest, and locked it away. This house had survived fire, storms, time, and now treachery. I wasn't sure how many more seasons I had left, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't spend them afraid. When night fell, I poured myself a glass of water, raised it to the empty room, and whispered, "To family." I set it down untouched, because family, the real kind, doesn't poison your glass, and I would never let anyone forget that again. The house creaked, the clock ticked steady, and I leaned back, listening to the silence I'd earned. Short, cold, final. They wanted my death in a glass. Instead, I gave them a mirror,